So we are here with what can only be summed up as the dark Sith Lord of this current remarkable moment inside of the Republican Party, the great David Sachs. Thank you for sort of elucidating for us what is happening inside of the Republican Party. Now, I want to set the table here and say, I think it's all really good.
Yeah.
But the best way to define it is that this is the first Republican Party in my lifetime where a Bush, a Romney, and a Cheney would all be booed on stage.
Yeah, amazing. Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the base of the Republican Party is sick of forever wars. They want the border sealed. They want the focus of the country's politicians to be on their problems, on domestic issues, not, running all over the world and getting involved in, unnecessary interventions. And I think finally we now have a Republican ticket that is fully, I think, aligned with that. Yes. And the problem is that the Republican elite, the traditional sort of Bush era Republican Party, obviously they don't agree with that. And I think the primary thing that seems to motivate them is this sort of, this imperialist urge that they have to run around the world being the world's policeman or something like that. It's a very strange thing. I don't relate to it at all, so it's hard for me to understand it. But it's what really motivates them. And those people kind of have to fall by the wayside in order for this new Republican Party to be born. But I think we're there now,
Yes. We've been sort of experiencing some of the transition period over the last couple of years, I would say over the last decade, right, where really John McCain was the last true run at this thing, and then there was a strange hybrid, and that failed with Romney and Ryan, and then Trump comes in, and you begin to see the creation, the starts of the machine. The machine begins to run, right? Now the machine is actually on the road, it's flying, and it's really quite remarkable. There's not a single person on that convention floor that would say, oh yeah, forever war's good. Oh yeah, Iraq and Afghanistan, those are successes.
Right.
That's
I mean, there were three kind of mega issues that allowed Donald Trump to come out of nowhere in 2016 and become the Republican nominee. Remember, he had to shatter the Bush family's control of the Republican Party. I mean, that was really remarkable. He wasn't obviously supposed to win. I mean, he truly came out of nowhere.
He was running against a Bush.
Yeah, exactly. He was running against Jeb. Jeb was supposed to inherit the mantle from his brother, who had inherited it from his family. I mean, this is politics can be a dynastic business. In any event, the three kind of mega issues that he had were ending the forever wars, sealing the border, and resetting our trade relationships. Yes. I mean, those were the three big ones. And then I think the fourth one, which was kind of a meta issue, was draining the swamp, right? Because without drain the swamp, you're not going to be able to get anything else done. And those issues were so powerful that it swept this total outsider from, into the presidency, into the White House. And I think that if the establishment had simply allowed him to implement the will of the American people with respect to those issues, we'd be in a completely different place as a country.
Yes.
What was so horrible about those issues that the Washington elite couldn't just take the note from the American people, you take a note. Okay, we're going to build a border wall. What's so horrible about that? We have to have a border. We're going to end these crazy forever wars. What good have they brought us, right? Yeah. $8 trillion we spent on the forever wars in the Middle East. 1 million direct deaths, 5 million indirect deaths. That's globally. We created it. We destabilized the whole Middle East. Actually empowered our enemies there. And of course we have all the wounded warriors and deaths as well in our own country. It's crazy. Why couldn't they get on board with that? It's and then the trade relationships. I think we've had more progress there in resetting our relationship with China. But these ideas just weren't crazy. They weren't what the elite made them out to be, like somehow they're fascism or something like that. These are common sense ideas that most Americans agree with. And again, if they had just said, okay, we're going to co-opt Trump. We're going to, again, take the note, realize that the American people want to send us a message. We'd be in a completely different place as a country. Not only would we be better off as a result of those issues, we wouldn't have the extreme divisiveness and hatred that we have now. But this divisiveness was caused by the refusal of the establishment to listen to the American people. And so here we are, we're 8 years later, and we're still trying to get those issues addressed. We're still trying to seal the border. We're still trying to get out of these ridiculous forever wars, and Ukraine is just the latest one. It is a forever war. It's all of our money. At least our soldiers aren't fighting and dying, but we found a proxy to do that for us. But it's still, we're wasting hundreds of billions of dollars in what will be a new $1 trillion forever war if we don't pull the plug on it at some point. And of course, we're still trying to reset our relationship with China. So it's like the country has just been held up from making progress on these things because of this extreme and insane resistance that came out of Washington. Recall, what did they do during the Trump presidency? They invented this insane narrative that he was a Russian agent, that he was somehow an agent of Putin, and they basically roiled the country's politics for years. I mean, literally for 3 years with this baseless accusation that came out of a phony piece of opposition research, the Steele dossier that the Hillary campaign cooked up and fraudulently mislabeled as legal expense, okay? And on the basis of that, they lied to the FISA court. They started a special counsel investigation for 2 years, which found nothing. But it roiled the whole country. And then, as soon as Biden got in, my view is he provoked this war in Ukraine, easily avoidable war. He provoked it. I can go into as much detail as you want on that. And then reopened the border, repealed all of Trump's executive orders on the border. The unfinished parts of the wall where the piece of wall were literally laying on the ground, they sold off as scrap metal for 2 cents on the dollar when they could have just put it up and finished the wall that everyone wanted. And instead, they ripped it down, created huge holes, let millions and millions of migrants come through. And then when Homeland Security has these migrant crossings or whatever, what do? They bust the people all over the country instead of stopping them. It's literally insane. But this is where we are as a country, and I think this is why Donald Trump is now leading the polls to come back into the White House and complete the agenda that he started.
You're doing the unthinkable, David. You're a successful man. You live in San Francisco, a very nice neighborhood, and you're having fundraisers for Donald Trump that raise $10-20 million. And you're inviting other people inside of that industry to come, and they give money to Donald Trump. And you were the first guy through the wall. You were new fashion, because now it's become almost totally and completely acceptable in society, in polite society or high society, to be a Trump voter.
Yeah.
That's something that is, I would have never guessed. Never in my living through the last 5 years, I would have never guessed this. But now it is because of, and the reason I call you a Sith Lord is it's because in part to some of the work that you've done, right? Like you shattered that. No, Trump can come into Silicon Valley, he can come into the heart of San Francisco and do a fundraiser, and he can make tens of millions of dollars. You're shattering these paradigms, and you just described paradigm after paradigm that used to be mantles of the left that they would cling to. We want peace, we want security at home. We want to help poor people. Now you're saying, and I can't believe I can say this, you're making it acceptable to wear a MAGA hat in downtown San Francisco. How is it possible? How'd you do it, David?
Well, let's give credit to some other folks too. Peter Thiel and Palmer Luckey also, they supported Trump in 2016. So they really, I think, broke this deal. And they took a lot of slings and arrows for doing that. The thing that put me over the top in this election cycle, so, I agree with Trump on the issues we talked about, but the thing that really offended me so much that I was like, I just have to get involved is all the lawfare. The idea that a president would prosecute his chief rival and seek to put him in jail, seek to bankrupt him, go after his kids. I mean, it's beyond the pale. And if you allow that to get normalized, it doesn't stop there. We've already seen with my friend Elon Musk that he's now the target of a number of government investigations that seem completely ridiculous. At SpaceX, being investigated for not hiring enough basically illegal aliens, asylum seekers, in a national security company makes no sense. It being investigated at Tesla for supposedly building a glass house, insane. I mean, they keep coming up with more and more preposterous. It's almost like trying to prosecute someone for an expired bookkeeping misdemeanor or something like that. They are weaponizing the justice system to go after their political opponents. And if you allow them to get away with that, it doesn't stop there. They'll just keep doing it with more and more political enemies. So to me, that was something that really offended me, and I was like, I really gotta, do what I can to help President Trump. And then JD Vance asked me as well. He's like, look, do you think we could get do a Trump fundraiser in San Francisco? And I was like, well, how much do you need to raise? Because it is a pretty liberal place. Yeah. And I think the original goal was $5 million. It's like, okay, I think I can do that. And so I called Chamath, who's co-host of mine on the All In Pod, said, do you want to do this with me? And to his great credit, he said yes, because he had only given to Democrats in the past. And he's, more of, I'd say, like a center left guy. So for him to come on board was, he took a big risk too. And then from there, the dominoes started to slowly fall. And then we got more and more people accepting. And it was like, okay, wait, I think we can raise $8 million. And then I heard that in New York, like the bigwig finance guys had raised 10 at their dinner. So I was like, well, okay, you think we could do 10? And then we ended up doing 12, and it ended up being 13 because people gave more at the dinner. So we ended up raising $13 million in one dinner, which was a huge thing. And the timing was really good because it was the first event that Trump did after the convictions in that ridiculous sham trial. Yes. And I think that he had just spent 6 weeks in a courtroom. Imagine it was with a gag order, right? This is like a form of house arrest or something where he's being forced. He's in the middle of a campaign and he's being forced to spend all of his days in this courtroom hearing this nonsense, and he can't talk about it. I mean, in any event, and then he gets a conviction, and the press is trying to brand him as a convicted felon, which was the whole point. The whole point of that sham trial was to brand him with that, so that has something to run on, right? Because they got no issues to run on that where the American people side with them over Trump. And so, our event was the first one that he did. And I think that, the thing that was really amazing is that the San Francisco media had been teeing up protesters all week, But when Trump came, his motorcade, went by, and there were hundreds of demonstrators on the street, but they were all pro-Trump.
We saw the videos.
All of them. They were all pro-Trump. There was a handful of people who were anti. There was one little lady holding up a.
Dave, this is why I call
Trump
you a
sign.
Sith Lord, because you're doing the impossible. You're doing things that are unnatural. Some would consider unnatural, which would be to have a MAGA rally in downtown San Francisco, which you did. And there's video proof of it.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I mean, but I'd like to take credit for the demonstrators, but they did that on their own, hundreds of people came out on their own, and they were cheering for Trump along the streets, so that when he got to our house, he was amazed, It's like, he said, am I in the right city? That's one of the first things he said to me. So I think the whole lawfare thing, totally, there's a huge backlash to it, and I think lots of other people felt the same way I did about it. This is ridiculous, this is un-American. This is Banana Republic stuff. You do not prosecute your political enemies, and so that was the beginning. And I feel like since then we've been on this remarkable upswing.
You posted today on X all of the Silicon Valley funders. Mm-hmm. Some names on there, never in my wildest dreams. I know none of the people personally. I know most of them by name, though, based on the industry that we're in.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. It was at least 20 names long.
Yeah.
And it was some of the wealthiest and most successful pioneers and entrepreneurs of Silicon Valley are now supporting Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
How?
That's a great question. I mean, so the big ones that announced yesterday were Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz, a huge venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. And they're titans of the tech industry. I had some sense of where their politics were, but I didn't expect them to come out in such a forceful way. I mean, they did an hour-long pod explaining exactly the issues that got them to this place, and a lot of them have to do with innovation and tech. But yeah, it was remarkable. And I think Ben in particular has always been, I think, a pretty liberal Democrat. So. To hear what he had to say was really interesting as well. So yeah, I think the dominoes are falling. So you had them, you had obviously Elon. We had the Winklevoss brothers, Cameron and Tyler. They were actually at my event. And
no
they got
no better way to
activated.
fuck over Mark Zuckerberg than to go support Trump.
Oh my God, it was so funny. So the president knew they were there, and in the middle of his talk, he did. was like a miniature rally in my living room. It was amazing. It's like, it's like hearing Billy Joel play your living room or something, because so he's up there and he sees them in the audience, and I guess he knew who they were, and so he calls me out on it. He says, "Yeah, I think you guys really created Facebook," and he's like, I think you got screwed over in that court case, but it's okay. You guys got dealt a lot of cards, because they're like tall, handsome, look like models. You guys got dealt a lot of cards. It's okay." Anyway, it was hysterical. And, so I asked one of his staffers, does he know the Winklevoss brothers? Because he seems like so familiar with them. And it's like, no, it's the first time. So, I mean, this is like just one of the things. I mean, Trump is a genius with people. There's work and preparation that goes into it. Someone must have told him that, hey, the Winklevoss brothers are going to be there. And he came up with this whole bid on his own. And so now I think so on the heels of that, they announced they're donating $1 million in Bitcoin each to him. And so now they're friends. And so, Trump's a genius with people. He really is.
So yes, there's Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. So much has been said about Trump over the last 72 hours, right? And so many people have been talking about him being a genius with people, and very few have talked about the decision to choose JD Vance and the actual matrix or algorithm that was at play there. And you were part of that push. I don't actually know how much of a part of that push you were, but from what I hear and from what I read, you were a big player there. Can you talk me through like what that decision matrix was? How did that decision come about? And what does a JD Vance pick mean for a new Trump going forward?
Well, I think I don't want to overstate my role, because I think there are a lot of voices, and I think the president likes to solicit feedback from a lot of people. And so a lot of people were weighing in saying who they liked for the pick.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I waited and said who I liked, but so did lots and lots and lots of other people. So
Yeah.
I don't want to overstate my role. I think that this pick was important, and I supported JD for a bunch of reasons. One is he has a very unique background. To be well liked by both the tech community and MAGA, that's like a really interesting combination. He came from a very poor area of the country, this Appalachia area, but obviously is a brilliant guy. Eventually, became, one of the things he did was be an investor and venture capitalist. So he understands technology and the future, but he hasn't forgotten from whence he came. So anyway, those are very positive, sort of unusual characteristics. But the thing that made me the most excited about JD, and this is what I tweeted, is that when the Twin Towers came down and he was in high school, and then we invaded Iraq, and this is in 2003, he was all gung-ho to exact retribution and justice on America's enemies. And so he believed, what they told us about Iraq, all the lies about how Saddam was in cahoots with Al-Qaeda and had WMD. And so he enlisted in the Marine Corps and went over to Iraq, and then subsequently he realized that the forever wars, especially Iraq, but the forever wars in general, were just a big mistake. And that's the kind of person that I wanted by President Trump's side. A patriot, someone who has the courage to go fight America's wars, but the judgment and the wisdom to know when it's better not to fight a war that is pointless and needless. And so that to me made me feel really good about JD. Like, that's the type of guy that we need there, especially when you compare it to some of the other people who are in the running, So I do believe that he's going to help Trump a lot, and I think that part of it is he will help campaign now in the Midwest. Again, he's very able to relate to the people who he grew up with, and I think it'll be an advantage in the campaign. And we have to win one of those Rust Belt states, right? If you do the electoral math, we have to win one of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, at least one, in order to tip over 270 electoral votes. So I think he'll be very helpful on the campaign, but I also think that he'll be very helpful to a second Trump term in terms of governing, because I think that his policy views and instincts are the most aligned with President Trump. And I think it's very important for President Trump to have a VP who's got his back,
Yes.
who's loyal, who's aligned with him, who's not going to be working against his agenda, but will be working for his agenda, and to help, really help President Trump with his legacy. I mean, that's so. I see the JD pick as basically a legacy pick. I think actually the New York Times said that, of all places. I think the New York Times got that right. They probably hate the legacy, but I think that it is a legacy pick. So I'm delighted that it happened.
The inflow of funds from Silicon Valley, is that happening in part because JD Vance is the pick? Because people are really comfortable with somebody who really understands tech and venture capital and the way that machine works.
Well, yeah, like I said, JD asked me, hey, can you put together this fundraiser for Trump?
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that was
Yeah.
from JD. I had
Yeah.
no idea. I know that happened a few months ago, and
well, this is the way politics works: is that a friend asks you to do something, and then and you get spurred on
Yeah.
by that, and so we went all out to help raise, and then I recruited people to attend that fundraiser, and now those people are doing things. So I mentioned the Winklevoss brothers. Now they're doing more.
yes.
Kyle Samani and Tushar Jain, who are principals, they're crypto guys of a crypto fund called Multicoin Capital, and they're again donating crypto to Trump, and Kyle is here somewhere. So now they're doing more. So this is what happens: is you get activated by a friend, I think, and then you do, and then you pay it forward, and more people get activated. So I do think that JD's relationships in tech have helped. They've helped in that way, and then I think they've also gotten tech comfortable that on a policy level, the Trump administration will be pro-innovation. And Mark and Ben, Andreessen Horowitz has talked about this on their podcast. But the pro-innovation bent that Trump is going to have in a second term, I think, is a really good reason for tech to support him, and crypto in particular. I'm sure you saw he says he'll be the crypto president. Meanwhile, Biden has been basically doing whatever Elizabeth Warren wants on crypto. She's out to ban it. She's out to drive it offshore. And so the crypto community, I think, has really come on board President Trump's campaign, and they're starting to make a big difference. And they're contributors too. So all that helps.
Did Elon went from 0 or 1 mile an hour to 1,000 miles an hour with Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I think the assassination attempt put him over the edge, but I don't know, right? But you do know Elon, and $45 million a month is a lot of money to donate to a PAC. And I know the Winklevoss twins are in on that PAC as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you talk through that sort of recalibration, because this is absolutely the first time that Elon Musk has really gone full bore. I know he donated to Obama, but he's in, right? Full MAGA Elon Musk is in now.
Well, I think Elon has said something that I feel as well, which is, look, I'm in the center. I've always been in the center. It's just you guys went running all the way over to the left.
Yeah.
So now I look like, wait, I'm like a crazy right winger because you guys have moved so far to the left. What are we in favor of? Free speech. Ending the forever wars, having a border. These are like real. Not doing all this crazy woke stuff in schools. Empowering parents. This is really basic common sense stuff. So I think what's happened is that Elon, first of all, got really motivated by the censorship, and that obviously got him to buy Twitter and set it free. And then since then, anyone can see his tweets. I mean, what you see is what you get with Elon. He's been tweeting what he thinks. He's been, I think, pretty animated about the border. And he's been animated by some of the crazy woke stuff. And he just announced his companies are leaving California because of this new law that Gavin Newsom is signing, where teachers can basically transition your kid without telling the parent, without getting permission. That's just
Demonic.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So that put him over the top today. Like, okay, I'm out of here. We're moving our headquarters for X and for SpaceX to back to Texas. Not back, just to Texas.
Yeah.
He's got other enterprises there already, but X and SpaceX were still in California. So, look, I mean, he's been very transparent about the issues that motivate him, and I think he's been tweeting, some time ago he tweeted, I can't support Biden, and then he's been tweeting more and more positive things about Trump, and he hadn't formally endorsed yet, but then after the shooting, that he said, okay, I'm endorsing this man. And I think that, Elon appreciates physical courage. I mean, I really think that put him over the top in terms of a formal endorsement. I was at an Elon party once, and this is one of the fun activities. There was a guy, like a knife thrower, and so he actually was throwing knives and axes. And Elon just stood in front of the the wood thing. He's like, "Hey, okay." And so the dude started throwing knives or axes at him. I was like, this doesn't seem like the greatest idea, I'm like, the guy's got balls.
He must have the Secret Service guarding him.
Yeah, seriously. I'm like, we don't need to take this risk. I'm an investor in your companies. This is something we don't need to do for fun. It's all fun and games until an axe splits your skull. But in any event, look, I think Elon is a guy who appreciates physical courage and leadership, and what Trump did in that moment. You can't fake, you can't plan. It's just, it showed who he really is, the mettle of the man. And I think it was just Elon seeing as I have to support, I have to endorse.
Yes. So your Death Star is now fully operational.
It's fully operational.
Your friends will be disappointed to know our systems are fully operational. But it is, right? Yeah. It is. Everybody's seen you in the president. We've seen photos of you in the president's box, and JD is a huge victory for you because it was you against the neocons.
Yeah.
The neocons had their boys that they really wanted, and they were really, really whipping that horse.
It's
and
insane.
We knew it behind the scene, but you won out, and that will remake the party for a generation.
I hope so. The thing that's really crazy to me, and I don't fully understand it, Benny, is why so many of these big donors are so hell-bent on this neocon agenda.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked. I mean, I don't think... When's the last time the United States won a war? Not in my lifetime. The only one that was sort of a victory was, I guess, in 91, the Gulf War, but then Bush Jr., reversed that, and so anyway, it's just been...
You sure about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even...
Sure about that?
Well, it wasn't like it was this huge victory, but at least it was over quickly, and we didn't make the mistake of going into Baghdad,
staying
right?
forever, yeah.
And remember, so Bush Sr. was actually pretty smart on foreign policy. He was pretty smart, and he helped sort of manage the end of the Cold War and the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact and the breakdown of the Soviet Union. He was a fairly deft foreign policy president. And then, when Saddam attacked Kuwait, Bush Sr. rolled that back, but he did not go into Baghdad. And that was a really important decision, as we later saw, because then Bush Jr. said, "Okay, we got to go get Saddam." And look at the chaos that he unleashed.
Yeah.
Total fiasco, total disaster.
And those people are still in charge, David. Victoria Nuland has more power than ever. Victoria Nuland has this creepy clip that's going viral on RX right now where she's guaranteeing that President Trump won't be president. And that was 24 hours before the shooting. And
it's scary.
Again, it's not a conspiracy theory to simply notice things. Right. It seems like perhaps the most catastrophic lapse in presidential security since Abraham Lincoln was shot in the back of the head.
It's insane, yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, in a world where I had to walk through 4 metal detectors to do our interview today, right? There are a dozen cops on every street corner. Where the hell was everyone? And if all of the assassination attempts that you just elucidated for us, political assassination attempts, legal assassination attempts, which radicalized you, and now, why not physical assassination attempts?
Well, there's no question that in reaction to what happened, there were a lot of people who were not wishing President Trump well. They were saying really crazy things, that basically regretting that the bullet missed, What I would say about, look, I'm waiting to find out more facts. I hope I want to see a proper investigation. I hope it happens. One of the things that Elon has said is that incompetence in the extreme is indistinguishable from sabotage. So...
Yes.
We know it's one of those two things, basically, right? It's like either it was deliberate or it was so incompetent that it almost appears to be
criminally negligent.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like if I left my kid in my car, I still go to jail if it's a hot day and I leave my kid in my car and a cop finds it and smashes my window, my kid gets taken from me, right?
Yeah.
I go to prison.
Well, it's just so frustrating. No one ever gets fired. There's no accountability.
Yeah, that's right.
We saw this with the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a super hard operation to get right. It was totally botched. and no heads rolled. So, no one ever loses their job in Washington
Right.
for incompetence,
Right.
and there should be a total shakeup of in light of this. I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, there needs to be a thorough investigation, but then we got to hold people accountable for incompetence.
So what is this? What is this new Republican Party? Trump wins. JD Vance becomes the vice president. You get some pretty remarkable access, and the people who you represent, some of the smartest. What Trump said about Elon, a clip that we play regularly, one of our greatest geniuses, right?
Yeah.
A Thomas Edison of our era is what Trump says on CNBC about Elon. Suddenly, the country begins to be run by the competent class again, actually, right? And the meritocracy is somewhat reinstated, I'd say. What does that look like? You're right. Like, so what does that party look like? What does that future look like?
Well, with respect to tech, what I would say is that most people just want to be left alone to innovate and create their businesses. With crypto, what the crypto community is begging for is a framework. They're just like, look, we're happy to comply with whatever rules and laws that you want us to, but tell us what they are. And the situation we have right now is that the SEC, the guy who runs the SEC, Gensler, who is a long time, he worked for the Hillary campaign. He's the guy who miscoded the Steele dossier as a legal expense.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah,
Anyway.
he got promoted.
Anyway, I don't want to get...
He got a big fat job,
yeah.
'cause, that's great.
Anyway, I don't want to get distracted, but
That guy sucks.
he's in cahoots with Elizabeth Warren to basically run crypto offshore. So what they've been doing is prosecuting. They've been, filing cases against crypto companies without saying what the framework and what the rules are. And again, what the crypto guys just want is just tell us what the rules of the road are so we can comply. And, instead of having all this uncertainty hanging over our heads. So I think that's an easy thing to grant. I think, people like Elon, he just wants to be free of vexatious litigation and prosecution by government bureaucrats who are retaliating against him, right? I mean, stuff like that. I think that, having fewer unnecessary regulations is always a good thing. So revising all of that, President Trump's talked about that. So these are the simple things that the tech community wants. It's not, it's not hard, it's just they don't want to be sabotaged, basically.
Right. Final question, David. Because you're probably the greatest red pillar of a community that nobody ever thought could get red pilled. You're probably the great. I can't get it out of my head that it would be now acceptable to walk in to a Fortune 500 company with a MAGA hat on,
Right.
and everyone would.
Well, that's still you might get some looks from that.
A Fortune 100 company
Yeah.
or a VC firm.
Yeah.
You could. Some of the biggest VC guys in the world are now effectively wearing MAGA hats.
Yeah.
And that is something that is neck-snappingly a neck-snapping change in American
Yeah.
politics. And so I'd like to ask your message to those who would be on the fence, those who would be either independent or small d Democrat, what we used to call an actual liberal, right? Free thought, free speech.
Right.
Not fascistic or tyrannical, but actually liberal. What is your message to them about November and about winning your vision for America?
Well, I think what I would say to a moderate or like a fence sitter and independent is if you actually look at the issues, President Trump's the moderate in this race. On virtually every issue, it's Biden who's the radical. And I know that Biden doesn't present as a radical, but let's face it, he's just a sock puppet for the staff that control him, and they are radical. And it's just about every issue you can think of, they are pushing a very radical agenda. And this is why they don't want to have a campaign on the issues, because what issue exactly are they going to push? I mean, the country doesn't want open borders. They don't want this runaway inflation. They want to have a sensible foreign policy. I mean, so on down the line. So it's hard for them to find issues, and this is why, Kamala Harris keeps tweeting that Trump is in favor of a national abortion ban when he said a million times we're not going to do that. And they say that the Vivek just had a tweet about this, responding that they were also saying, I think Harris was saying that the Republican platform has a national abortion ban and is against gay marriage.
Yeah, it was AOC this morning. Yeah.
It was AOC. Sorry, it was AOC. Okay. Yeah, it was Harris was saying the thing about the abortion ban. AOC was saying the thing about gay marriage. And Vivek's like, what are you talking about? It's not even in there. It's not even factually true. It's like, can we have a debate about like what we actually want to do? So anyway, there's a lot of that going on here. I think their agenda is very hard to defend.
Yeah. And so the major argument for Trump-Vance, the elevator pitch for Trump-Vance is what? To a disaffected leftist, to a disaffected liberal.
Well, I think that we'll have a better economy. I think we're going to have. I think we have to put a lid on the out of control government spending, which is ultimately the cause of the inflation. And Democrats just won't do it. I know that Republicans haven't always been great about that either, but Democrats are way, way worse. They've said Biden spent trillions and trillions and wanted Build Back Better, which would have been something like $3 trillion more. So the spending's just out of control. I think Republicans will be better on that, and that will control inflation. That will allow interest rates to go down, and then that allows you to be able to buy a house, or like have a car, make a car payment, or if you have credit card debt or something like that. Now, your life gets a lot better. I think that the world was at peace under President Trump, relatively speaking. Now it's on fire. Yes. I'd rather have his management back on that. He was actually willing to talk to our adversaries to diffuse crises. And remember, when he ran back in 2016, they said that this guy's going to create World War III. Well, and then when Biden took over, they were like, the adults are back in charge. It's like, really? Because we've never been closer to World War III for, I don't know, since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Like, we are, that close to being in a direct war with the Russians. Our weapons are being used to strike Russian soil with Biden's permission. I don't know what you call that, except, where this is a highly provocative situation. Yes. So I'd like the real foreign policy adults to be back in charge. I like the border crisis to be solved. Again, an easy thing to fix if you're willing to fix it. Yeah. I'd like the lawfare to stop, weaponized prosecution, of political opponents, and then stop the censorship. The Biden administration was proven in Missouri v. Biden, case that went to the Supreme Court, to be what's called jawboning, social media companies to censor speech they didn't like.
Yes.
I think the Supreme Court ended up not granting standing in that case, so they didn't rule, but I think it was a bad decision. But in any event, we know that the administration was highly involved in basically badgering social media companies to take down that speech. We don't like what they're saying about COVID. Yes. We don't like what they're saying about vaccines, and that's like totally unacceptable and un-American to me, total violation of the First Amendment. So again, just having an administration that believes in free speech, again, would be very nice. These are all issues that I think should appeal to moderates.
Yes. If you are actually Palpatine, is JD Vance Anakin?
Well, I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that because, look, I mean, I like the Sith Lord thing. That's kinda
okay,
cool.
all right.
But I don't want to. But I think that, look, I don't want to overstate it because I feel like I was one of probably 1,000 people who had an opinion on this, and relayed their opinion. And at the end of the day, this decision.
It was you, Tucker, and Don Jr.
Well, I don't want to say that. Look, I think the president.
But it was the world you represent, right? It was the world you represent of people who really want somebody who's tech forward, right, to be in here, not a neocon, and Trump sided with that world, and we love that because it's the world we live in, right? Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I'm just one opinion of many, many people who is offering opinions, and it's the president's choice of who to listen to, and I'm just glad he ended up with this decision. And look, JD has been involved in politics. And doing great things for a long time. So I just don't want to overstate my involvement or role here. I can overstate it. It's my job, actually, on this channel. David Sachs, the Sith Lord of our current movement, and some the history books may write the dark savior of the Republican Party from neocons. Thank you. Thanks, buddy.